After making a strong comeback in order to be up 2 goals, the Seattle Kraken inevitably lose the lead in the third period with less than 17 seconds in regulation. Now, ain't that some Kraken
You are Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are the Seattle Kraken.
Hey, what do you say, Seattle hockey fans? Welcome to another episode of Locked On Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where we bring you your favorite team every single day. Erica Ayala here, been your host since the beginning of this show, from expansion draft to actually pre-Seattle Kraken when it was NHL Seattle, covering this team and the local area. Also can find my writing over at CBS Sports, and I am the founder of Black Rosie Media, a platform and community to empower Black women and melanated creators in sports media. Woo! Kraken fans. Wow. That was a tough one. Before we get into it, though, I want to let you know today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Now, FanDuel, we're going to talk about a little bit later when it comes to playoff odds, but make every moment more right now. New customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. This was a game the Seattle Kraken needed. This was a game that the Seattle Kraken could have won. And if you listen to yesterday's episode dropped right before the game, what did I talk about? I talked about playing with a lead, but then I also talked about how this Seattle Kraken team is not particularly good at, having a comeback late in games. We got the lead. We made a third period comeback, and then we blew it. We blew it with bad, faulty defensive assignments. I really enjoyed what Pierre Eduard Bellemare had to say after this game. I thought he showed a real level of leadership with how he approached it. Dave Haxtell, to my surprise, was a little bit more calm and demure about the loss. And perhaps that's because if you haven't seen some of the clips, whether it's what I'm about to show you from Pierre Eduard Bellemare, Jordan Eberle on the bench after the game-tying goal in the waning seconds of the third period, or Oliver Bjorkstrand. The guy's visibly upset, and they do have practice today. I'll try to get you some, some of those quotes, if not on some of our content on YouTube Shorts on tomorrow's episode, but visible, palpable frustration and completely understandable. But here is what Pierre Eduard Bellemare had to say about the game in the locker room after a 5-4 overtime loss to the Vegas Golden Knights.
Pierre, obviously, guys didn't get the extra point in that one, but what did you like about your team's composure and the way that you were able to respond and push back through that game?
To be honest, I thought I liked everything pretty much until we scored our fourth goal. I felt like at that point we somehow cut off the system a little bit. We get off the plan, and then from that point we were on a hill instead of being on the attack like we were in the first 14 of that pair. So liked everything, but that got it's awesome that to be able to help offensively. Obviously the goal was big, but I'm more happy about the way we were able to create kind of momentum, in the beginning of the game, and every time we're trying to go on the ice, we're trying to either get out of the D-zone face-off and then bring the puck to the O-zone and try to create some kind of chaos for the team to kind of get excited. So I'm excited about that part. Yeah.
Was that your goal?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think they gave it to Turbo. To be honest, I have not seen it. He said it was his, so I'm okay with that. It's a line goal, so push the lead. I thought we were not just flipping pucks or being passive. I think felt like every lines were, it was kind of we meant to take the puck forward, get the red line, get it deep, go work it, right? and so they didn't come off their zone clean. The changes were more like, you know, changing for one another. I felt like after we scored the 4th goal, it was more like, you know, kind of a high flip, and then like everybody changed, and then they're coming on the next line, right? So it's kind of like not cool to the next line a little bit. I felt we were, as soon as you come on the ice, the line were kind of like on their heel because they're coming, and I think that's I mean 100% on us.
Pierre Eduard Bellemare with a lot of different things that he talked about there. He talked about taking the foot off the gas after the 4th Seattle Kraken goal. They were up 4-2 after that Oliver Bjorkstrand goal, a beautiful goal akin to a lot of the goals he was scoring right before, even during, and then after the All-Star game. And then he talked about, and Dave also talked about this, the changes, kind of the lethargic, lackadaisical, flipping the puck out of the net. In fact, out of the zone, excuse me. In fact, the game-tying goal, in my opinion, well, there are a lot of breakdowns. Oh, baby. As someone who loves defense, everydayers, OGers, you know I love defense. That was a terrible defensive play. Not the only one by the Seattle Kraken, but that was a terrible defensive play. Nobody knew where I can never say this man's name. Marchessault was. No one knew where he was. If they had any awareness that he was backdoor, even that it was a beautiful touch pass. But you see that Larson, right before that play and right before it gets swung and the Seattle Kraken can't quite get it out of the zone, Larson looking a little lethargic, which, okay, late in the game, you understand it, but you have to get back. At minimum, if you're tired, put your freaking head on a swivel. Nobody, and I mean nobody from the Seattle Kraken appeared to know that Marchessault was right there. Marchessault. Why can I not say this man's name? Nobody knew that he was there, apparently. And I mean, I could go on about Jonathan's goal in particular. It drove me up a wall to see that. It was poor execution, not able to clear the zone, no communication, and you see it. Philip Grubauer in a game usually is pretty composed, and as soon as he realized he was not going to be able to get back for that, his face completely just sinks down to the ice. Heartbreaking, gut-wrenching, and completely preventable. That's what makes it worse. Completely preventable. I've been talking about this real Kraken crap for the Seattle Kraken since season 1. And I don't know what it's going to take. I don't know what it's going to take for this team to stop playing like that. Again, I understand, Larson, you're tired. It's late in the game, the energy, but put your head on a swivel, have some awareness. Even I believe it was, I don't remember if it was on that 4th goal, but one of the goals, Eeli Tolvanen is kind of that high forward. You have to, get into the passing lane. There was one where Pierre Eduard Bellemare, he had lost his stick, and you see that he's just a little bit late with the body. Some of those plays are just going to happen. He didn't have a stick. He's doing his best, and you can't, really take away a lane. If you don't have a stick, you can't extend it. So I understand that one. But the inexcusable is just not knowing where the players are. Yeah, okay, it's 6-on-5, but you have 5 players on the ice. You should be able to cover some ground. Another thing that the Vegas Golden Knights did very well is that they really packaged, maybe it's that they took advantage that the Seattle Kraken were packaged in. The Vegas Golden Knights were walking. I mean, absolutely walking down the slot, mid to high slot, all open. And why is that a problem? You want to clog that, you want to congest the middle. You don't want to give away high danger shots. I understand that. Okay, perfectly fine. That being said, if you're already imposing a tight defensive area because you're not protecting the high slot, then for me, there's no excuse to then not cover backdoor. You've already arbitrarily created a smaller defensive space. So why is everyone puck watching? Why do you have multiple players on one? And then you're not even looking to see where the offense could pass the puck. You have to anticipate that. These are glaring issues for the Seattle Kraken. They have been for a very long time. And that's why I have been saying for a while, and I'm going to get pretty bold. I'm going to get pretty adamant about the Seattle Kraken. Are we buyers? Are we sellers? It does not matter. We have to be active. I've also talked about maybe it's time for a different defensive structure. Maybe it's time for a different assistant coach or coaching overall. I would say, I don't want to put this completely on Dave. Maybe that's just my naivete. I'm a little bit reluctant to go all the way there, but this has been a problem. If you don't have a head coach or an assistant coaching staff that can help to clean up these issues, then we need to find it. And if that's not the issue, then you need to find defenders that are going to play tough, that are going to play smart, and that are not going to allow games to slip away in the last 17 seconds off of preventable, self-inflicted wounds and mistakes that you cannot make when you're trying to make a playoff run and you're not even in a wild card spot. This just cannot happen. It's absolutely disappointing. And I don't see how anyone can look at the Seattle Kraken team and the game that they played last night and think that this is a team that can go deep. Were there brushes of brilliance? Yes. I like that we got the goal early. I like that we had a strong third period. But you heard from Bellemare, and it's things that I've been saying over the years. You take your foot off the gas, you'll lose the sandpaper, you'll lose your freaking mind. You don't know what's happening on the ice, and you're going to continue to lose games. And so whether it's, I didn't like how Larson was assigned on that last one. I know a lot of people getting on Alexiak for different things. These are things that we've talked about over and over and over again. And you have to have game awareness. You have to have situational awareness. You cannot lose a game the way the Seattle Kraken lost a game. Am I wrong? Let me know in the comments. Do you think I'm being too tough? I don't know. Maybe we haven't been tough enough, because that's just that's a bad loss at a bad time for a team that is better than what we did yesterday, particularly in trying to close out that game. Let me know what you think in the comments. We're going to talk about a few other things. We'll hear also from Matty Beniers. We'll go over some of the game stats, and then we'll take a look at this playoff race. It is a heavy lift now for the Seattle Kraken, but once again, self-inflicted wounds. Are they going to learn the lesson from this? Or are we just destined to continue losing games like this, like we've been doing all season? We'll talk about it today and throughout the rest of the season here on Locked On Kraken. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at Sleeper. We know it's beyond the halfway point. We know the Seattle Kraken are fighting for a playoff spot, and they have a lot of work to do. But regardless of where the Kraken are right now in the standings, I want to remind you that you could win big by playing Daily Fantasy Hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy hockey app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our #1 choice for daily fantasy sports, and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. Now, you can also play Sleeper for NFL, NBA, MLB, college football, and so much more. But again, Sleeper is our pick for daily fantasy hockey on the Locked On NHL Network. All you have to do is pick whether studs like Jonathan Marsh show. Why can't I say that man's name? Matty Beniers, or even Oliver Bjorkstrand, who got a little fired up last night, will record more or less than their Sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus minus, and more in any given game. Now, to 100x your bet, you need to correctly predict 8 player stats. You heard me right, Kraken fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper. So start paying attention and start to nail your picks so you can win big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions do apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. Now, we want to let you know today's episode of Locked On Kraken also brought to you by our friends at eBay Motors. You know, we've been talking about it. Passion, drive, patience. Woo, I need a little patience with our defense. That's what brings home the winning trophy. It's always what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED lights, and so much more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. And with over 122 million, with an M, parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with the eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed. Let me say it again. Guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only, available for U.S. customers. Thanks as always for making Locked On Kraken a part of your daily destination. Another thing you need to make part of your daily destination is Locked On Sports Today. You can watch Locked On Sports Today, of course, on YouTube, and you can also watch Locked On Sports Today on the new Amazon Fire, on the new. As you know, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Locked On Sports Today. Baseball fans, mark your calendars for March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time for the best MLB season preview coming exclusively to Locked On Sports Today. On March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, be the first to get local insight from the MLB local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Find it on March 20th at 7 p.m. on the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Pierre Eduard Bellemare was fired up. Oliver Bjorkstrand pretty fired up after that loss. I was pretty fired up. I mentioned that I thought Dave Haxtell had a pretty good approach to it. He talked about faceoffs. Again, not winning faceoffs at the right time. In the game overall, 54.5% faceoff percentage for the Vegas Golden Knights. They also scored right. It was the Dorofeyev goal, right? Their second goal in the second period. They score right off the faceoff. That was wild too. You actually had one of the Vegas Golden Knights. He broke his stick. Whoever was taking the faceoff, I forget right now. And then Kraken players, it was McCann in the dot for us right now. McCann couldn't get to the puck, and then Burakovsky was the closest there. I think it was Burakovsky and then Yanni Gourde. And Vegas played hungry. They attacked every element of the game, and that's what you heard Pierre-Edouard Bellemare saying that was missing, especially late in the game for the Seattle Kraken. You also heard Dave Haxtell. We're not going to play his clips on today's show, but he talked about in overtime exactly what Pierre-Edouard Bellemare was talking about when it came to shift changing and balancing, changing shifts and having a good chance offensively. And if you don't make that play offensively, which you do want to, try and take those chances, high danger chances, then do you have enough gas to get back? So the conservative play versus the aggressive play, at times it seemed like the Seattle Kraken were quite honestly confused by that. Whereas the Vegas Golden Knights, they attacked the game. They attacked it pretty much aggressively and consistently throughout the game. And that's how they were able to forge their comeback. I mean, you could see the fire, the passion, the energy in the last goals from Jonathan Marchessault. Why can't I say this man's name? That's gonna be like a running joke on this episode, and we play them again next week. Jonathan and also Jack Eichel. That fire, that intensity, that's how Vegas played. The Seattle Kraken, we had some of that, but we didn't maintain it. We got to let that loose. We got to open it up. And it was unfortunate to see this loss, quite honestly. I talked about faceoffs, 45.5% clip for the Seattle Kraken. What are some other stats I want to go over here? Let's go to the instant analysis. This was a game where the Seattle Kraken nor the Vegas Golden Knights got what we would consider a quality start. Goals saved minus 1.1% for Philip Grubauer. So it was Hill, I believe, in net for the Vegas Golden Knights. So neither one were higher than or made more goals saved than expected. They were actually under what was expected. 29 saves on 34 shots for Gruby, 26 saves on 30 shots for Hill. The shot attempts on the power play, 7 shot attempts in 2 tries for the Seattle Kraken, 11 shots on 3 tries for the Vegas Golden Knights, and they were able to convert on one of those power plays early. One of their early goals in the second period, I should say, was a power play goal. Zone exits, 86% for Vegas to 70% for the Seattle Kraken. Puck battle wins now 58% for the for the Seattle Kraken, 42% for the Vegas Golden Knights. But again, it's not just overall that number. There were times, that 4th goal for Vegas, a few times where the Seattle Kraken weren't winning the puck battles in their defensive zone. Now, in the offensive zone, I thought we did a great job with puck retrieval. There were times where we looked really good at that, and that's how we were able to surge and get those comebacks. Reloading, I liked that. And we didn't have that effectiveness. From my eye test, we didn't have that effectiveness in our defensive zone. I'm starting to get upset again. I did not like this game from a defensive perspective. And to me, defense is about, it's a lot of defense is about effort. And so it's, and defense is going to be hard work. I think that's why a lot of people don't like defense, but that's why I love it. Because if you bust your chops on defense, there are going to be times where you get beat, absolutely. But if you bust your chops and you really go after defense, you can absolutely stymie. You can stifle. You can absolutely stun another team because of what you do defensively. Also, the great thing, in my opinion, about defense is that there are just certain things that you always have to be mindful of. Backdoor, head on a swivel, body to body, stick to stick. The Seattle Kraken, moving your feet. Unfortunately, the Seattle Kraken, I really think historically have not been consistent or really good at any of these things. And it drives me up a freaking wall. A lot of times I'm talking about team defense, but there are times where individual defensive efforts are just not good enough. And I think it's a combination in this game. I know I'm really harping on this team, but this is a game you could not afford to lose. And it'd be one thing, Vegas comes out, they were the better team, boom, let them have it. But we got the early goal, as I said. We forged the comeback, and we were within 17 seconds of a regulation win over a Pacific Division opponent, and it fell through our fingers because of things that are preventable. That's heartbreaking, and it's disappointing. But let's hear what Matty B had to say after the game. Matty Beniers scored his first goal in the last, I believe it was 10 games. So getting him back together, you'll also probably hear Piper Shaw a few times talking about every line scored in this game. And that's definitely a plus. And we want to talk about that. We want to talk about productivity and that balanced scoring attack. But again, it goes back to what Pierre Eduard Bellemare said. There were times where, yeah, that was the result, but the effort, the workload was not even. And Pierre Eduard Bellemare saying that he did not feel from shift to shift that the Seattle Kraken took care of each other. And that's not Seattle Kraken hockey. That is not how we play. And maybe this needs to be the game that we look at when we step outside of ourselves, when we play selfish hockey, when we're not communicating, when we're not anticipating and keeping our head on a swivel. This is what's going to happen. And it didn't take long. But that's what happens when you don't play Kraken hockey and you go back to Kraken crap. We can't afford it. Here's what Matty B had to say after the game.
To swallow those in the extra point there. How do you digest this one?
Yeah, I mean, I thought both teams played well. You know, there were momentum swings, and we obviously took the lead there in the third, and you know, we just got to do a better job of, you know, making sure that we don't lose that lead and keeping the momentum instead of, you know, sitting back a little bit or whatever it was. So, you know, I thought we had a good performance, but it wasn't good enough for tonight.
On your goal, it was a tip there. Did you know it went in? What was kind of your reaction and thought process in that moment?
Yeah, I saw it go in, and you know, I was pretty obviously fired up, and you know, I think, you know, it was a good goal, a good play by Tuna on the draw. I lose the draw, and he goes and gets it, and Borgie has a good shot. So, yeah.
Matty, to have the pushback that you guys did in the third, as critical a game as this was for you, what did you like about that stretch, at least getting back into it and finding a way to take the lead that you did?
Yeah, I mean, it was really good by us. You know, you saw contribution from every single line. You know, that's when we're at our best, is when every line's going, every line's, you know, making plays, producing, playing fast. So, you know, I think we had, like you said, a good pushback, but, you know, we need to close that one out.
Good.
We need to close that one out. He's absolutely right. He's also absolutely right. I just went on a rant about it. When we play our best, every line is humming. And again, you heard the comments in the media scrum about every line contributing and things of that nature. But that pregnant pause before Matty Beniers started that, and there was a little bit maybe of the audio levels were low, but he said, I thought we played a good job. Both teams played a good game. But I don't know, when I first saw that clip, that pause right after the game, I think is just indicative of, again, my sentiment and what I believe has been the sentiment of this team, who did, again, practice today on Wednesday, knowing that there were elements of the game that were definitely Kraken level hockey. And there were other parts of the game that if they don't pay attention, if they take their foot off the gas for just a second, it's also the Kraken crap. And I really believe that this team knows this. I hope that they can learn from this, but now it's a matter of, is it going to matter? How much is it going to matter right now? You know, and that's what we got to figure out. But let's talk a little bit about our friends at FanDuel. Today's episode of Locked On Kraken brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game in the tournament. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a one seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $500 or if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on points, spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. I'll be covering the women's tournament, and it's going to be a good one. So head over to FanDuel. Speaking of FanDuel, let's talk about some playoff odds and what's looking like for the Kraken. All right, Seattle hockey fans, tough loss. That was a tough loss. I'm not excited about it. I don't like it. Right now, the Seattle Kraken in the Western Conference, we are plus 600 to make the playoffs per FanDuel, behind the LA Kings at a minus 3,500, the Vegas Golden Knights at a minus 1,800, Nashville Predators at a minus 520, Minnesota Wild at a plus 560. We've been using the money puck odds as well. We were at about 15%, I believe, yesterday, a little bit over 15%. So we'll take a look at those playoff odds for today. I mean, 10.5% that we make the playoffs at all per money puck. We talked about it just yesterday. We dropped more than 5 percentage points just from game to game. I think about 15, almost 20 percentage points since before the Winnipeg game at Climate Pledge Arena. It's not how you put together a winning team. You know, we already know some teams are already eliminated, a la the Chicago hockey team. So, you know, we have time. We haven't dug so much of a hole, but the hole's pretty significant for the Seattle Kraken. And again, it's games like this that make it tough to swallow. So the Seattle Kraken will have Washington coming up, and then Nashville. Nashville, as I've mentioned, we've been talking about them a lot. They have 86% odds right now to make the playoffs, and they put together a winning streak at the right time. When you look at the overall standings, the Seattle Kraken, again, just have a lot that they have to gain. Now, they did get a point because of overtime, but you know, they're at 68 points in the standings, 69 for St. Louis, the Minnesota Wild now at 71, Vegas 77, and the Nashville Predators at 78. The Predators and the Vegas Golden Knights are in those wild card spots right now. The Minnesota Wild is the closest within reach of Vegas, at least as of right now. When you look at the top of the table in the Pacific Division, it's Vancouver, Edmonton, and LA Kings. So the LA Kings have started to turn some things on here. Vancouver has just been a solid team through and through. So a lot of work for the Seattle Kraken to do. And we can do it, but we have to be committed to putting the Kraken crap away. Yeah, I was pretty fired up, not happy, very disappointed with yesterday's game, but there are more games to play. Bounce back against Washington, get a good game against Nashville and Buffalo, and then we see what happens. But if the Seattle Kraken don't make the playoffs, which is it's becoming a higher and higher probability, to me, there were definitely some things that we could have done in the regular season to eliminate some of our losses. We got great goaltending per usual, but we put a lot on that goaltending. And I don't know why, but the Seattle Kraken don't seem to be talking enough about their defensive deficiencies, nor doing enough to rectify their defensive deficiencies. And that can't fly. That cannot fly for another season if the Seattle Kraken are serious about getting back to the playoffs. Be kind to yourselves. Be kind to one another. We still hold fast. We still stay true. And we got a couple of days until we say loud and proud, let's go Kraken. Keep an eye out. I know the team did hit the ice. I have some errands to run, but maybe later in the day, we'll recap any pertinent news that you need to know. But until then, again, hold fast, stay true, be kind to yourselves, be kind to one another, and I'll catch you on the next episode of Locked On Kraken. Erica L. Ayala, your host of Locked On Kraken, signing out. Peace.